Good morning, Simon Skinner here after teaching, and this is video number 21, Original Sin Question in Myths in So-Called Christianity. Now we've got a nice controversial subject today and a controversial picture, and always good to open with the picture, and it just so happens, like a lot of these pictures, to be alongside a very important subject, and that is original sin. Now, I'm taking original sin to be this not first sin, just happens to have happened, which I call it, but in somehow it tainted mankind, which I say it did not. Well, it's not I say, Paul says it did not. Now, if we go to Romans 2:14, we have proof, as Paul says, for when the Gentiles, which have not the law, they're not under God's laws, because as you see the verse before, it's not the hearers of the law that just before God, and you've got to hear the law, well, that's when you're under God's laws, but doers of the law shall be justified. But with Gentiles, they don't have the law. But when they do by nature the things contained in the law, these not having the law are a law unto themselves. What the problem is, you see, for the Gentiles that aren't under the law, is that all the good they do couldn't take them to heaven. So you could, let's say there were secular humanists, perfectly good people. If we related it to sin, even though they're not under the law, so they can't sin, but they do the things by nature. That's why Paul phrases it that way. He doesn't say they don't sin because they're not under the law. They do by nature. It's not in their nature to break the law, to sin. And it goes on to say in 15, there's a word missing, it's in the Greek, those which show, that's those Gentiles which show the work of the law written in their hearts, of course, because they're born again. Those, their consciences also bearing witness. You see, you've got to have your conscience bearing witness with the Holy Spirit, and it's all about free will. And that's in chapter 8. We might have a look at that later. But I've shown you there that it's not a natural thing to sin. Now, if we go to, there's a couple of places that just follow this. We have the ever famous one, which I have done a video on already, Romans 3:23, for all have sinned. As I've explained there, and I shall go on to explain with the word all, that means, because it's related to 3:20 in context, for all that have sinned. Sin is described in 3:20. That's where we get the idea of sin from. This is the gospel of salvation. Paul defines sin. It's the experiential knowledge of sin. It's when you break the law. And for all those, they come short of the glory of God. It's not everyone in the world has sinned. You can only sin if you're under the law anyway, as we will come to find out. So if we go to chapter 5, verse 12, wherefore, as by one man sin entered the world, and death by it goes on to say sin, right? So we have and death by sin, and so death passed on to all men. Adam didn't pass death on to all men. God passed death on to anyone that sins. Because it's saying there, death passed on to all men for all that sin. So you're saying, well, that's not what it says, for all have sinned. What does all mean there? All men, all have sinned. Well, this is where I go to the Greek interlinear, which I will show you now on my other phone. Right, so this is my Greek interlinear, low battery, but all, if we go to all, what we will find is this is all means all in the sense of each part that applies in context. All, it's one piece at a time. It's an accumulation only of those involved in the context. So all have sinned is all, it is only all that have sinned. You must really know this, that all in the sense of every part that applies. This is not the whole of mankind. This is only those that have sinned. And so when I go back now, remember this, and it's in the Bible. This is Bible Hub. So when I go back now to 5, and we're looking at for upon all men, death passed upon all men that have sinned, for all that have sinned. So death only for those. Now, because the context here said that until the law that Moses brought in, sin was in the world, but it wasn't actually imputed. Now, this is not about Adam. Nobody here is talking about specifically Adam. What they're talking about is the law of Moses, and that's what it carries on for a couple of chapters on the law of Moses. But what it's saying is that Adam is a similitude, or we're a similitude of Adam, in that the same thing happens. So anybody that sins will die. Now, he didn't die immediately. It just means he didn't go to heaven. So that is the same for us. It's in the likeness of Adam's transgression. So anyone that sins will die. This is not everyone. The nature of mankind has not changed. The rules are the same for Adam as the rest. That's what it's telling you. The rules for Adam are the same for the rest of us in his likeness. Not that we've got death because of we're tainted in some way and we're all sinners. He hasn't put sin on us at all. This is terrible teaching. So if I go to my the next one I want to show you, I've had to go back to Deuteronomy 30, very big chapter that is, about the blessing of the curse. This is where everybody gets to choose. Do you want a blessing or a curse? You see, and if we go to 15, this is from the beginning. This is what Adam was told, it's what Moses told, and it's what's told now. I have set before thee this day life and good, death and evil. Well, that's simple, isn't it? That's what he set out, life and good. Now, that assumes, of course, you can be good, which you can. It's not, else that wouldn't be said, would it? Why you couldn't possibly say that if you were already condemned. Jesus is coming to remove a curse. Now, I thoroughly believe death was done as a curse, so it could be removed. It was a crafty thing by God, not to say that, oh, that's it, it's ended from Adam. Oh, no. It's a curse so it can be lifted for those in Christ. So Jesus holds the power over the curse of death Ah, you didn't know that, did you? But he wasn't the only one who didn't sin. It's just a new system, bringing together the laws of Moses and the law of Abraham. And the law of Moses, sin and death, was only added, and that's the whole point of this, is 5:14 and onwards, is that it was added because it was missed in the law of Abraham. The law of Abraham is the law of righteousness, but Moses brought the law of sin and death. Now, all the temple polity, what we call, the Torah, yes, is full of all the temple working, that's gone into heaven. You read Hebrews 9. But the law of sin and death came in. See, sin came in with Adam. He either broke the first commandment, love God with all your heart, by disobeying him, or he partook of the tree of good and evil. Well, that's not a real tree with apples on it. What he did was maybe he did evil. He learned about evil and did it. But even disobeying God, as we know, is the first commandment. But we get no different justice because of Adam. It's the same justice. So if I go to another page, see this one I keep showing, and I don't know where this original sin and tainting come from, because it says here in Galatians 6, let every man prove his own work. Because in verse 5, for every man shall bear his own burden. So there's nothing to do with Adam. You have your burden, he had his burden. The rules are the same. There's no difference anywhere. And as I said, the similitude is just saying, just like Adam, just like you. And now, if you go to the other videos, you will see that we're under God's laws, and that would be interesting to you. But just to get rid of this original sin, and I know I saw a video once with Richard Dawkins, and he said the worst thing of all was that Christianity says that he is tainted nature, and they've got no right, and they haven't. I know I've got free will. I know I can choose to do good or bad. My nature's not tainted, and he felt it was an insult, and it's true. He's been very helpful to Christianity, actually, because he's shown a couple of other things. One is that to help with the second coming, Jesus said he would come back. And Richard Dawkins says, is he a liar? Is he mad? Or did he come back? Well, obviously he came back. He promised he would, at the destruction of the temple. And so he's helpful in that. So everybody who's a futurist either thinks Jesus is mad or he was a liar. Well, I don't think either of those two. So he is very helpful. There's a lot of things atheists say. Now, Evo atheist, he's an Evo atheist as well. Of course, he does show himself up because he believes in the theory, which is full of gaps. And as far as I can see, because I did follow it at one time, that he believes magic fills those gaps, the magic of chance. They call it the god of the gaps. Well, of course, there's no gaps in creation theory. There's they've got gaps, and they say, oh, you're saying God fills it. No, don't. No one can fill those gaps. Nature cannot on its own fill those gaps. So in lots and lots of ways, Richard Dawkins is helpful, because he brings things forward, and you've got to do that. That's what I'm doing here with these myths. So because there's one truth. At least if Richard Dawkins was to look at this again from hereafter teaching point of view, he would possibly have to come up with a set of other arguments, and he might be satisfied and think, oh, well, good, at least they're not saying that, you know, they're not insulting him personally when he knows if he's doing good or bad without being said he's born evil in some way. Terrible, terrible. We're born good and we learn to do evil, and that's it. And that's not some progressive idea. This is Paul talking, you know. So let Paul do the talking. Anyway, that should end this video for today. I'm still working on part 2 of 18, which will come out soon. Thank you for watching. Till the next time, goodbye.